Hi, I'm Kesenya and welcome to Guiding Star Astrology. I'm your Astro Weather Girl, here with this week's Astro Weather Report. I'm going to show you how the stars are going to affect your life this week. To get the most out of this video, listen to the introduction to understand what is going to happen astrologically this week and when it will occur. Then use the timestamps in the description box or comments section below to go to your sun, moon and rising signs to see how things will generally affect you. This is a general read of the astrological energies that will be playing out this week. For a specific assessment of how the planetary energies will affect you personally, I would suggest getting a reading with a professional astrologer. You can do so with me through the Guiding Star Astrology website. If you're new to astrology, you are so welcome on this platform. If you would like to learn to read your own astrology chart, you can do a short, fun course with me for $35 Australian. The link is in the description below. Thank you to all my YouTube subscribers and my Patreon family members. Without you, this video and its message would not be possible. Well, hello, my beautiful friends out there in YouTube land. It is wonderful to be with you again for this week's Astro Weather. And this week we are going to be empowered through the tool of astrology because we're going to know what's coming up for us in the months ahead. We're not just talking in the week ahead, but the months ahead. I'll tell you why in just a second. But this is an energy that's shifting in this week, the 14th to the 21st of August. And the specific date we're looking at that the shift is coming is on the 20th of August. Depending where you are in the world, don't forget to check the description box below for your time, wherever it is in the world, and also for the timestamps for your sign. But before I get to that, I just want to let you know this week on my channel, I did a wonderful interview with Jamila, who is providing planetary washes. What is a planetary wash, I hear you say? She's providing them through the Wellness Hub on Guiding Star Astrology website. Link is in the description below. Planetary washes are an energy healing system. If you have debilitated energies in your chart astrologically, or you're born under a debilitated energy of some description, then the idea here that has been channeled from, believedly, the Seraphim is that this energy healing modality will transform that debilitated planetary energy that's existing in your chart. So check out the interview. It's quite fascinating as a system. It's on my YouTube channel under astrology discussions. No, actually under wellness practitioners in that playlist. You can check it out there. And also if you're after a free PDF download all about what planetary washes are, then you can go to the Wellness Hub on the website. Under Jamila's profile, you'll find a free PDF download all about planetary washes for each of the planets. It's a fascinating little booklet, and do check it out. So I also, speaking of terrific interviews, I also have a really great interview coming up very soon. So if you haven't liked and subscribed, hit the bell notification for my videos, then do so now because you don't want to miss this interview that's coming up. Oh my goodness, I am so excited. I am doing an interview about Syzygy with the great Tanya Daniels. I'm so excited to be speaking to this amazing Hellenistic astrologer. She has such a reputation, and I just can't wait to share that with you. So make sure you subscribe and hit the bell notification. You do not want to miss out on this fabulous interview. Now, what's going on in the world this week? Well, these are crazy times. Nobody would be in denial of that. We are living in very unusual times and have been since 2020, obviously. But particularly over the last couple of weeks, we have seen in the Northern Hemisphere crazy out of control fires in so many countries. It's like the whole Northern Hemisphere is on fire. And that's been obviously worrying and fear-inducing for many people. Here in the Southern Hemisphere, certainly in the country where I live, it's winter and we're more susceptible to colds and flu-like illnesses. And of course, that now includes the COVID varieties that are far more potent, I guess, than colds and flus. But just the same, that has triggered a lot of lockdowns in the state where I live and other states in Australia. I'm not sure I've got to say about other parts of the world how in the Southern Hemisphere how they're dealing with this at the moment. But the bottom line is This is a crazy energy going on in the world at the moment. Nobody would be in denial of that. But many people, myself included, are finding themselves getting swept away by fears about the future. Worrying about what's going to happen. Why have I had children? Oh my goodness, what kind of world is going to be left for them? This is destroying our life experience today, in this moment. This fear, this worry, and we are left with a low vibrational energy that can be very debilitating. I want to share about a walk that I had yesterday. I went walking in the forest near where I live. And if you've ever been in Australia, you'll know that a lot of our bushland is quite interesting. It's not formal, like there's no neat rows of plants and what have you, and most forests all over the world are like that, of course. But I couldn't help but compare our man-made natural spaces and what they're like with this wild bush forest. Man-made natural spaces tend to be very orderly, controlled, managed, planned, designed to the nth degree. And we find there's some sort of release in that, or peace in that, that there's order and structure. Gaia governed natural spaces, the spirit of the earth governed natural spaces are very much the opposite of that. They're very wild, they're chaotic, and they're seemingly random. And I was walking through the forest yesterday and seeing, a stream that was just going wherever the heck it wanted to. It wasn't sort of like a street guttering that was just running in a certain direction. Stream weaving its way through the forest, and plants popping up here and there, and wildflowers just coming up wherever they chose. Very wild, seemingly random. And yet both types of places give peace to the soul. In fact, the wild, chaotic spaces can be far more therapeutic, let's say, than even the orderly, structured, controlled places that natural spaces that men create. And I do have a point to this story, so stick with me. So both can give peace to the soul, but it's in wild times it's really important to remember that chaos, though it seems like it's going to break us, like it seems like everything's out of control, it doesn't make sense, things are wild, it can actually create something of immense and incomparable beauty over the course of time. And this was the lesson I got through walking through the forest yesterday, and it really struck me. This chaotic beauty that I was in is similar to what can be created in our lives through upheaval, through trial, through difficulty, through being under stress and strain, which is what the state of the world is at the moment. We are creating something that ultimately will be far more beautiful. We need to trust in the divine process, even if it seems like things are out of control. So there might be a bigger, more spectacular picture for humanity on the way, but it might be over the space of thousands of years and many incarnations, many lifetimes that this is being created. So when we're in the moment, it can be difficult to go through these upheavals and cataclysms and what have you. But it's so important, I feel, to accept the moment that we are in, knowing that there is a bigger picture involved here. Yes, we need to stand up for what is right. We have to stand up for what is just and true, not just roll over and accept, this is the way things are, and we'll just put our feet up and let whatever happen to us. We do have to stand up for what is right and true and just. But we also need to be at peace with the present moment, the moment that we are in right now, as much as we're able to, because this will raise our vibration. We need to realize that we are divine beings having a human experience, and I underline the word experience for you. This moment is just one experience of many moments that will make up our lifetime. When we brush our hair, for example, are we making the most of that beautiful moment, how it feels to have that brush on our scalp? That is an experience in the moment. When we drink our coffee on the way to work, do we gulp it down and just barely even taste it, or do we appreciate the bitter taste, if you're into coffee, that coffee has? Making the most of every mouthful and savoring the most of every sip. When we're cleaning the stove after cooking dinner, something I hate doing, but can we be fully present in that mundane task? And last night I was cleaning the stove with the intent, I'm going to be present as I'm cleaning this stove and just concentrate on cleaning this stove. And randomly I found myself just singing all of a sudden, whistling while I worked, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I haven't sort of burst into song for no reason in ages. And here I was singing away in the present moment cleaning the stove. So I want to just, and this is important, it does correlate to the energy we're going to be looking at in astrology this week, but I want to focus our minds back on stilling our minds, centering our minds, because it is our thoughts that create our vibration. If we give in to an energy of fear and the thoughts and the stories playing around in our head of fear, then we are creating a low vibrational energy in society. And right now, we're in a fight for truth and justice, and we want to lift the vibration and let that vibration come to bubbling to the surface, because it will be what wins over what some people might call evil in the world. So yes, we've got to fight the fires. Yes, we have to help those who've suffered loss. We need to do what we must in COVID times, and we need to allow others to do what they feel is important to them without condemnation in COVID times. We need to support one another in whatever ways we can through these situations, but we need to also know that the universe has a divine plan in all this chaos that has a purpose, and the best way to help is to practice moment by moment vibration raising stillness of the mind, stilling the fearful stories, and being present in our moment, in our day. So that's something I wanted to share with you, because this week we're going to be looking at the mind-oriented planet Uranus. Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury. It's a very mental energy, and that is what we're going to be looking at. Uranus going retrograde this week. And I want to get back to calming and stilling our crazy making minds so that we raise our vibration. But before I do that, the best days this week, well, of course, we need to be conscious of the void of course moon. So check on your app, say an app like iLuna, which will tell you when the moon will be void of course. Avoid instigating anything under that energy unless you don't want anything to come of your endeavor, because it sort of nullifies things when we do stuff under a void of course moon. But the good days to take action and do something are the 17th and 18th. These will be particularly good days, and this is Australian time, so basically check your part of the world compared to Australia's part of the world. But the 17th and 18th are generally good days if you want to do something to grow, to expand, to be blessed. The 19th and 20th are good days this week if you want to focus on personal empowerment, if you want to achieve some ambitions, if you want to reinvigorate yourself and transform your life in some way, then focus your actions on towards that end on the 19th and 20th. So that's the best days. Our energy focus, as I just said this week, is all about Uranus. And Uranus is going retrograde in the sign of Taurus. Here, I'll put a big R beside him so we know what we're looking at this week. Uranus is going retrograde in Taurus at 14 degrees and 47 minutes. And this is happening at 11:40 a.m. Melbourne time. Check in the description box for when this is occurring for you. On the 20th of August, it is in Melbourne time. But check when it's happening for you in your part of the world in the description box below. Now, when a planet retrogrades, it is moving to a point where it's closer physically to the Earth, and therefore the energy is generally more intensified. So this is an energy of Uranus being intensified, but also internalized as well. So expect this to bring, say, greater autonomy, because that's something that Uranus is very good at. It's about being distinctive and it's about being unique. So expect greater autonomy during this time. And just so you know, Uranus is going to be retrograde in this situation until the 18th of January 2022. So we're in for a good 6-month haul with this one. So like I said, greater autonomy, individualism, greater individual energy being expressed, not only in the collective, in the society, but within ourselves. I'm going to be myself. I'm going to be true to myself. I'm going to honor who I really am instead of buckling over and being what everyone expects me to be. So ultimately, at the end of this 6-month transit, liberation from restrictions and blockages can occur in our personal lives as well as in the collective right now. It's not a bad energy. However, for people who are not used to being a tad rebellious, honoring the self, liberating the self, sticking it to the man, anyone who's a conformist out there might feel somewhat uncomfortable. under this energy. And, those who are against sticking it to the man might just change their point of view under this retrograde energy. Because when a planet's retrograde, it looks like it's going backwards in the sky and retreating, going over its steps. And then at the change on the 18th of January, Uranus will move forwards again in the sky. Now, this is an optical illusion. It isn't really that Uranus has decided to change direction. It's just based, as I said before, on the proximity to the Earth and how the Earth views the other planets in the solar system. It's like cars going down a racetrack, one might be going faster than the other and overtake the other planet, and it looks like it's going backwards when you overtake a car, even though it's actually going forwards. Simple, in a nutshell, explanation for retrograde motion. So what it can bring is change, big change, internal change, especially in our lives. So if you're not used to sticking it to the man, if you're very much a conformist, then this energy, when Uranus goes retrograde, may very well change your point of view. And you might be like, well, hang on a minute. I think we do need to stand up and rebel here in some way. Now, coming in a year, Uranus goes retrograde every year, but this one is happening in a year when Saturn is squaring Uranus and has been all year. We have the third and final hit coming in December. So this retrograde could prove, it could prove quite potent for overthrowing hierarchies, getting rid of old structures, getting rid of stuffy authoritarian types in the world, things that have lived beyond their use-by date, and time to throw them out. This could be the energy that Uranus retrograde provokes. So it's going to be an interesting time the next 6 months because of this. Hence my dialogue at the beginning of this Astro Weather Report, all about lifting our vibration and being present in the moment, making that a priority throughout the coming 6 months. Now, when a planet like Uranus is retrograde, what it's going to do is, it's going to make us more rebellious. We're going to feel internalized, like, I can't stand this anymore. I've had a gutful. How do I break free from this situation? Now, that can be out there in all the things going on in the world right now, but it can also be in your personal life and whatever is playing out in your personal life, where you're like, I've got to break free. I've got to get out of this situation. I'm suffocating here. I've had enough. So there's this energy of something feeling blocked in our lives, something needing to be shaken up to set us free. And this retrograde is the energy that's going to do that. But it will be like the Coke bottle. You know what it's like when you've got a Coke bottle and you shake it, and then, the tension is building inside the Coke bottle, fizzing away, and there's tension there, there's frustration there inside the Coke bottle, and you take the lid off and kapooh, out comes the rebellion that's been shaken up inside the Coke bottle. This is the energy of this retrograde motion, where we internalize our rebelliousness and internalize our frustration until we can take it no more, and kaboom, out it comes like a volcanic explosion. So that's an energy that's going to be very interesting to tango with over the next 6 months, obviously. Also under this energy, people can make mountains out of molehills. You go to a restaurant for dinner and the bread roll is just a tad stale, and somebody just loses their shit over the bread roll being a bit too stale, and you're like, come on, and you lose it over something that's really insignificant in the scheme of things. You've lost that present moment awareness. What is good, what is beautiful in this moment? My soup is delicious. The bread roll, but my soup is fine. People making mountains out of molehills is going to be a theme for the next 6 months. Heads up on that one. So let's break it down now. What is happening for each of the signs according to this retrograde motion that we're having with Taurus? Now I'm going to start with Taurus, and we'll begin with Taurus energy. So we have beautiful Uranus, and I love Uranus as a planet. He is kooky, he is quirky, he is interesting, and I love him. So Taurus energy, well, this is where we're going to feel super independent now with Uranus retrograding in your sign. You're going to feel empowered within yourself, and you'll be really looking for liberation in any areas of life where you feel stuck, be it a career, be it a relationship, be it your sense of personal identity. If you feel stuck, and Uranus goes retrograde in your first house, you're going to get it shaken up. You're going to get a big change happening. So that could be a change in your image. It could be a change in how you are asserting your independence in the world, your uniqueness in the world. There is a liberation of your uniqueness. There is a liberation of your authenticity right now under this transit. And of course, it would be a good time now to look at where are you feeling stuck with your independence? Where are you feeling stuck with your autonomy? Where are you feeling stuck and need to break free with your image, the personality that you're putting out to the world, as well as the physical embodiment you have in this world? What needs changing? What needs shaking out of a rut? This is a retrograde energy, will be a time for addressing that. Now we are just doing a quick whiz around the horoscope. Gemini rising, sun or moon people, well, the energy of Taurus going retrograde for you guys is falling in the 12th house. There is a desire now to be involved in sort of new age practices and new age principles. And this is a funnel for any frustrations you're feeling with the world, because the 12th house is about escaping reality that is too hard, too harsh, too difficult. And so Uranus going retrograde here is saying, I'm not coping. I need to escape from these situations in the world, because it's harsh, it's hard, and people are fighting one another over ridiculous things and attacking one another on social media, and just in this state of high anxiety and super fear driven, and it's driving me bonkers, and I want to retreat and I want to escape. Uranus going retrograde in the house of escaping and running away from the harshness of reality says, I'm going to escape into New Age practices. Uranus is actually quite connected to New Age spiritual practices, so alternative forms of spirituality. So there is this retreat within, maybe into like a yoga practice or a meditation practice, or into using crystals, or maybe reading up about angel guides and that kind of thing. Like going into these New Age practices can be the funnel to deal with for the next 6 months for Gemini people, your frustrations with society and the desire to escape. So escaping into those sorts of things. You might also be able to, during Uranus's retrograde motion, ease some frustration, that bottling up, that Coke bottle energy that I spoke of. You might be able to ease some frustration by focusing on creativity and writing poems about this current situation and political climate in the world and so on and like that. You might be able to ease some frustration by doing artworks or writing songs that are maybe a little bit rebellious. I think about the Cranberries, who were one of my favorite bands when I was growing up, and some of the songs they wrote about their frustrations with the situation in Bosnia at the time and Ireland and so forth. And there's this Uranian energy being channeled now that's about rebelliousness, liberation, breaking free, but doing it in a creative way that is a catharsis, if you like, or a way to deal with that tense frustration that can happen. All right, so moving along, Cancer rising, sun or moon people, we have the energy of Uranus turning retrograde in your 11th house. This is where you may experience for the next 6 months some sudden changes in friendships, or friends acting erratic, or maybe turning very bohemian on you, maybe beginning to be quite eccentric in their behavior. So friends can change, and the dynamics of your friendships can go through big changes now. We can also find that when Uranus goes retrograde in the 11th house, we might want to keep our friends at a distance somewhat. We're becoming a bit more autonomous, as I said, and so you might want to sort of keep to yourself. You've still got your friends and you're not trying to cut them out of your life or anything, but you are more detached now from your friendships, and you're sort of a bit more going it alone under this energy. There's also potentially a changing in the focus of your goals that allows for more liberation, but it'll come from within you. What you really want, that's going to liberate you and free you in terms of what you want to achieve in the world, that can go through a change and a shift internally over the next 6 months as well. Don't be surprised, Cancer people, if your patriotism, which if you're a Cancer rising person, probably is something that is quite strong within you, if your patriotism finds expression now in protest, in taking a stand, in doing some activism. So for Cancer people, this could be part of the calling and the mission that you have to contribute to the world over the next 6 month period while Uranus is retrograde. So forewarned, forearmed about that one. And don't be afraid, Cancer people, to join vocal groups if you have something very dear to your heart, because Uranus retrograde will be supporting you in doing so. Moving from Cancer to Leo energy now. Uranus if you're a Leo rising person, Uranus will be retrograding in your 10th house. And so this is an area of life where you might be feeling frustrated with maybe the comparison and the competition that is present in professional realms. And that can cause that Coke bottle effect that I spoke of in the introduction, where you're just agitated by, somebody competing with you in the workplace, or it might even be a perception that there's competition even when it doesn't exist. But there's this frustration about that now, where you just want to break free. You want authenticity in the workplace. You want to be liberated in the workplace. You want to be seen and noticed, Leo rising, for the wonderful creative contribution that you make and the beautiful energy that you bring to the workspace and the professional sphere of life. You want to be noticed for that and honored for that. That's natural. That's Leo. But there is a frustration when people are not appreciating you in the workplace now. And that can lead to a desire to break free. I'm going to change jobs. I'm going to go to, start working in a place that feels right to me, where I'm going to be valued, where I'm going to be appreciated. And you can get to a point where you're like, I'm just going to make a big change. That can be the taking the lid off the Coke bottle and out it all comes. That's it. You give a boss a piece of your mind. I'm not appreciated here. You don't value me. I'm out of here. I'm going to go and do XYZ at a different workplace. So feeling frustrated with competition, as I said, feeling frustrated with lack of appreciation in the workplace, and that can lead to a sudden liberation or a sudden shift and change in your professional life when Uranus is retrograding in the 10th house. Okay, Virgo rising, sun or moon people, the energy of Uranus retrograding is falling for you in the 9th house. And this is where you might find yourself in that Coke bottle situation that I spoke of in the intro, frustrated with the moral and ethical codes in society. This is the house, the 9th house has connections to Sagittarius and Jupiter, which are all about moral and ethical law. And so our societal laws can be very frustrating at the moment, very restrictive at the moment. And for Virgo people with Uranus here, you might be internalizing this frustration that you have with these codes in society, frustrated even with cultural barriers in society and cultural laws as well. And so what happens when Uranus goes retrograde in the house of these things? We internalize our frustration over these things to the point where it builds up and then it can explode. And you might, explode by doing some publication. 9th house is publications. You release a journal article, or you might make it very public in some way. This is not a house connected to the internet or anything like that, but you might publish some comment, and it might be published online, published on Facebook, published on your website or something like that. And you share your frustrations with these barriers, with these ethical codes and so forth that are restricting and blocking perceivedly your ability to be free and liberated in society. So it's a pretty heavy duty energy for Virgo people. I mean, the 9th house is the most blessed house in the horoscope, yes, but when Uranus is retrograding here, it's calling us to a higher imperative. It's calling us to be honorable. It's calling us to live with integrity about our beliefs. This 9th house is about beliefs. So you are going to perhaps be called to take a stand for beliefs, take some, humanitarian action. Activism is the word I'm trying to find in my head. Activism regarding your beliefs. So don't be surprised if you find yourself in situations of the next 6 months, Virgo people, where you are called to account, called to take a stand regarding those kinds of things. For Libra rising, sun or moon people, the energy of Uranus retrograding for you guys is falling in your 8th house. Now, this is going to be a very interesting energy for Libran people. The reason it's going to be interesting is that when we've got a planet like Uranus, who's very at home in the 8th house, I might add as well, we can start experiencing some very strange events that we have no control over. Often these can be fated. More often than not, they are life-changing kind of events. Uranus going retrograde. Uranus is not necessarily a planet of crisis per se, but he is a roller coaster ride. And here he's changing energetic direction. And so in the house of crisis and change and transformation, expect life-changing circumstances to unfold. But the good thing is, and it's not necessarily bad, sometimes a life-changing circumstance might be a sudden windfall that you get, a sudden inheritance in the 8th house. That can happen. Or it could be that, you thought life was heading in one direction and all of a sudden something significant happens and off you're going in the complete opposite direction. So expect the unexpected, Libra. But psychic downloads can also be more powerful for you when Uranus is retrograding in your 8th house. Liberation from manipulation, power and control can come for Libran people at the end of this retrograde period. It's like there's frustration there with power, with control, with these people dominating and so on. 8th house is very much about power. And we get frustrated by that and aggravated by that and how dare you tell me what to do kind of thing. But at the end of this period, we can break free. Uranus is retrograde. We break free once the tension has built. And we break free from any power, manipulation and control that might be affecting you in your personal life. So big times ahead for Libran people. Scorpio rising, sun or moon people, the energy of Uranus retrograding is falling for you in the 7th house. And this is where you might find that under the influences of the next 6 months, you might want more excitement in love. You are maybe bored with your current relational circumstances. If I have to do it missionary style one more time, I'm out of here, like there is a boredom. I'm just over this. Now, of course, that could transpire to any, or translate rather to any relational circumstance. I've given you the sexual illustration there, but it could be anywhere. I'm bored with this meal that you cook every single week. Can't you change it, mix it up or whatever, it could be some domestic circumstance with your partner. So there is this feeling that, you want to change, you want to bring some excitement back into your relational situation. And so that can happen, but it will usually happen as a result of getting overly frustrated, making mountains out of molehills. I can't stand this anymore. And then boom, you have a bit of a volcanic explosion, and the change then comes after that. Liberation occurs after that. Freedom occurs after that. I'm not saying that you're going to find freedom from the relationship. It can be freedom over the next 6 months within the context of the relationship. You know what? I'm not eating that stupid dinner that you cook. I'm going to free myself from that. I'm going to go make myself a toasted cheese sandwich, So, I don't know. Personally, I'd rather someone cook dinner for me than go and make a toasted cheese sandwich. But anyhow, that's beside the point. So sudden changes in relationships can eventuate over the next 6 months that you just didn't see coming. And we all know, well, maybe we don't all know, but when Uranus is transiting just generally the 7th house, it is a time when we are going to be shaken out of a rut with relationships. So if this retrograde motion is moving across your descendant degree, then expect that you are going to be shaken out of a rut with relationships in quite a significant way. So let's say, you have your descendant sort of around maybe 12 degrees or something like that, or thereabouts. You could feel this over the next 6 months. So what are we seeing here? If you are single and you are sick of that relational situation that you are in, this Uranus transit could change things completely with a sudden situation that you didn't see coming that puts you in a different relational position. Maybe suddenly you have a girlfriend or suddenly you have a boyfriend where before you didn't. If you're in a relationship like a committed partnership, a marriage where you weren't being true and honoring yourself and you were just going through the motions and it felt stale and it felt old and boring, this transit could bring a sudden change that you didn't see coming, and no longer will you find yourself perhaps in this relational circumstance. So the next 6 months is going to be, in a basic nutshell, very, very interesting relationally for Scorpio, rising, sun or moon people, usually based on where you're at relationally at the beginning of this transit. Okay, for Sagittarius, rising, sun or moon people, the energy of this particular Uranus turning retrograde, which it does every year, as I said in the intro, it turn retrograde every year, but this year it's happening during as we know, pretty intense energetic year. So what's it going to bring for us? Well, for you, it's falling in the 6th house. So this is where there might be some sensitivities during the next 6 months in the body. Sensitivities to health. Watch what you're eating, because this Uranus retrograde can bring sort of unexpected food issues. Unexpected, like, reactions to food, that kind of thing. So not just, it's not food, it's more like our digestion has the issue, has the trouble. Significant maybe health concerns might pop up that we didn't realize were going on. This can be good, and by that I mean maybe you had something going on in your body that you weren't aware of, and then this energy shifts and you're like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that my behavior in a certain area is causing this to happen in my body. Now I know I can make the change. So there's an awareness that's created through Uranus retrograding in the 6th house that might be necessary, rather than getting down the track and having everything go to hell in a handbasket. So I want to also say be aware of burnout now during the next 6 months. Overwork, overdoing it, because this is the house of work. And Uranus will internalize our frustrations with that. Uranus retrograde will internalize our frustrations. If we are finding that, we're working really hard, but it's annoying the hell out of us to have to work big, long hours and so on, then we build up this sort of internal frustration and aggravation, and I'm so over this, and why is this happening to me, and it's not fair, and it all comes out. We may end up being liberated from a frustrating work situation in the end, but it'll usually come through being a bit aggravated about it in the process. So be aware about that. You might also find that you can be frustrated with your co-workers now, and there might be even a preference for being autonomous and working alone. So if you get the opportunity over the next 6 months to do a solo project, or to work by yourself, or to manage your own business on your terms, then take it, because this is an energy for doing so. Uranus retrograding in the 6th house, rather than getting frustrated with co-workers and having that sort of explode into goodness knows what sort of dynamic. All right, so moving on to Capricorn, rising, sun or moon people. The energy of Uranus retrograde is falling for you in the 5th house. 5th house energy, well, this is where you might be feeling some frustration in your creativity. It can bring intense creativity into your life, absolutely, because Uranus is like a highly creative planet. Eccentric, brilliant, genius level creativity can be manifesting while Uranus is transiting through the 5th house. However, this unconventional creativity, while it is abounding from time to time, remember that Uranus is like a light bulb, switching on, switching off, switching on, switching off. And if you're working in creative fields, Capricorn, then it's very frustrating that there is not this consistent flow of creativity. And so when your creativity switches on, it's like raw, coming in thick and fast, all this divine creative downloads and electric impulses with your creative expression. But when its switch is turned off, it's like tumbleweed city, and you're like, when is this going to end? My creative juices are just not flowing, and I need them to be. I've got to produce this fashion catalog, or I've got to get that jingle written just in time before that ad goes to air, or whatever creative field you're working in. And when the creative juice isn't flowing, it's really frustrating when you're on a deadline with these things. So there may be periods of creative blocks and frustrations over the next 6 months or so, but there will also be great sort of explosive periods of creativity just bursting out, like the volcanic eruption that comes out. So just be aware that there might be some ebbs and flows and roller coaster rides with your creativity over the next 6 months, Capricorn. Aquarius, rising, sun or moon people, the energy of Uranus retrograde is falling for you in the 4th house. Sorry, I had to just think for a second. It's falling in the 4th house. So this is where we get a retrograde motion of Uranus, which is frustration in the domestic life here. So we might feel a bit irritated with our family, but yet we hide it, we internalize it, we keep it to ourselves. But over the course of the next 6 months, that frustration with our family or our home situation and domestic environment, where we're living, the house that we're living in, or a real estate deal that we're trying to manage or something, or a frustration with our garden and the veggie patch, we're trying to be self-sufficient and it's not working or something. And that frustration builds and builds and builds until there is this need to sort of get out of this stuck rut with the situation, and it comes out in an explosive way. Uranus retrograding can make things behave a bit like a Coke bottle. Out it comes, volcano. So there is going to be a need at some point in the next 6 months to shake things up with your living situation, with your family, with your domestic life. So maybe now is the time, Aquarius, to address what's not working right in the family. Where are things a bit out of whack, and how can you balance that? Look at those things now rather than sort of having to deal with a volcanic eruption, 4 months in. That would be my advice there. If there's anything that needs addressing in your home, like some kind of renovations or some electrical work particularly, I'd underline that actually. If you've got electrical appliances that are dodgy, if your electrical wiring has been faulty in the house, your light keeps flicking or something like that, or even things like your smoke alarms with their batteries, if they haven't been checked in a while, then do it under this or before you go into this energy, because Uranus retrograding, especially if it's retrograding across your IC, your manifestation point for the 4th house, could bring some unwanted events with electricity into your life. So forewarned, forearmed, deal with electrical situations and electrical appliances right now. So that's what I'm saying as the main focus for the next 6 months: family, domestic life, home, and shaking things out of a rut, liberating you in those realms. So for Pisces rising sun or moon people, the energy of the retrograding Uranus is falling for you in the 3rd house. And this will be very important for anybody who's at school right now, or maybe doing online learning or something like that. So there might be some difficulties with learning over the next 6 months, or frustrations perhaps with teachers that might happen. Some people might even be finding that they're breaking away from a suffocating learning environment under this energy. But it will usually happen after a build-up of this energy of blockage, and then out it all comes, explodes forth, and big change eventuates. So let's use an illustration. If you've been feeling, that you're in a class or a course of some sort, and it's just not doing it for you, and you're enduring it, and you're putting up with it, and I'll just go, one more time, one more session, and I'm really not getting anything out of this. And you keep putting up, and to the point where it's like, that's it, I'm going to have to, and you're in the class one evening, and maybe it's an evening class, maybe it's a day class, and it gets to the point where you're like, you know what, I'm over this, and you stand up and you storm out, It could get to that circumstance with under retrograde Uranus, where the tension, frustration builds so much, and then it's just like, out it all comes. Perhaps deal with any frustrations when they first rear their head, rather than internalizing and letting that frustration fester. So there might be a breaking away also from some suffocating dynamics with siblings now as well, because this is a house of siblings. So if there's been a circumstance with siblings where things haven't been so flash, then this could be the breakaway point that comes under this retrograde motion. If you're in a good dynamic with siblings, then you might do something eccentric together with your siblings. You might visit a very bohemian type art gallery, or go on some sort of a very alternative festival picnic kind of event or something like that. You might do something very Uranian with your siblings if things are generally good. But Uranus retrograde can also bring frustrations if you own a small business as well, and can bring frustrations with admin issues in the 3rd house. So just forewarned, forearmed about that. Deal with things as soon as they come up. Don't let them fester to the point where they turn into big issues. This is also the realm of the mind is the 3rd house, and Uranus is this, we talked about in the intro, our mental processes and how they affect our life. So there could be a shift now for Pisces people in your mental perceptions of the world, how you mentally process what's going on in your life, and there might be a lot more internalization and sort of mulling over things now as you observe happening in the world, and your mental processes go a bit more inward. But as with the Libran people who are having Uranus going retrograde in the 8th house, this can also be a time for Pisces people when your psychic intuition is enhanced, because this is the house of the mind and our thinking processes, and Uranus is this goosebump moment energy where we get this inspiration, this genius level download. So your intuition will be really amped up under this retrograde Uranus. Your ability to tap into and understand maybe scientific phenomenon, astrology, like progressive thought, humanitarian idealism and utopianism. This is going to be amplified now for Pisces people with Uranus being such an internalized energy in the house of the mind. So in that sense, it could be quite an exciting time for Pisces people. For Aries, rising, sun or moon people, well, thank you for hanging in there till last, Aries. Much appreciated. This is an energy when Uranus is transiting through the 2nd house of throwing out conventionality with regard to how you get your resources that support your body's journey through this lifetime. So Uranus going retrograde is saying, really within, I'm not going to put up with this conventional approach to making money, or conventional approach to growing my own food, or conventional approach to where I get my milk from. This is the house of food, which is a resource that we need. It's a house of clothing. It's a house of shelter. It's a house of anything that provides us with a resource that supports our body. So it's not just money. So there is now this energy of saying, I'm not going to deal with this in conventional ways. So for Aries people, it could actually be a time when you say, I'm going self-sufficient, I'm going independent, I'm going autonomous with my food production, with my clothing production, with, getting off grid. That could actually be the case. Uranus rules electricity, and going retrograde might give you the impetus to say, you know what, we're going to go off grid. Yeah, we'll still have our electrical appliances and what have you, but we're going to get it from the sun now, not from the coal-fired electricity plants and stuff, or nuclear electricity plants, that kind of thing. We're going to I'm going to be independent about my resources. I'm going to be independent about where my resources come from, and so we throw conventionality to the wind. There might be some big financial instability that might play out over the next 6 months, because you remember Uranus is a roller coaster ride, and he's a roller coaster ride in the 2nd house for about 7 years, all up. So it ain't over yet, Aries people. I had this sort of for the last 7 years when Uranus was in Aries, and it was a roller coaster ride, but I never had the rug pulled out from under me, and I was never sort of begging on the streets or anything like that. But just expect that this could be this retrograde period of time when things are really up and down. One moment you've got thousands in your bank account, the next week you're down to $2. So have a backup plan, I would suggest, during this retrograde period, where you have a few bucks in a separate bank account as a rainy day, don't touch it unless I'm absolutely desperate type account, just to mitigate the instability that a Uranus retrograde process can bring. And what we value can go through big changes now too. This is the house of what we value, what's important to us, what we treasure. And so Uranus is internalizing this. Okay, what do I value? What do I treasure? And that could go through a big shift. It could, at the end of this 6-month transit, you might break out and say, you know what? I used to value, leg warmers, or whatever it happens to be, something that you value. And that was a ridiculous example, but first thing that came into my mind. But you know what? I'm not into the 80s leg warmers anymore. Now I value stockings instead. So big shift of ridiculous example, but what you value can be just, completely turned around at the end of this 6-month process. So my lovely people, thank you for joining me for a quick look at Uranus retrograding through each of the houses of the horoscope for the next 6 months. Let's close with a prayer. Energy of love in the universe, we thank you that there is a big picture unfolding, and that even though things can feel chaotic and feel like they're crazy, we trust in the process. We trust that there is some beautiful landscape that is being created through all the unconventionality and the turmoil and everything that seems to be in a state of upheaval. We ask that the beauty be revealed to us sooner rather than later. We ask that we live in love and the present moment awareness to support and love one another, and to also give us the most joyful experience as the divine incarnated in human form in this moment. And so it is. Well, thank you for joining me. I'll have another Astro Weather report for you next week.